very, very well liked, because no matter what culture or what sort of walk of life you're from, I think people, they see it and they immediately understand what that energy, what that message is, and they're drawn to it because everybody kind of needs a little.
Welcome to NTD Newsroom. I'm Don Ma. Our stories today: the latest on President Trump's moves to respond to the conflict in the Middle East. Trump still weighing his options on whether to get the U.S. military involved. And a civilian hospital in Israel is damaged and dozens are injured after an Iranian missile attack. What Israeli officials are saying about the attack on the medical center. The U.S. is resuming visa applications for foreign students, but all applicants will now face stricter social media vetting. What do we know so far? TikTok will keep going in the U.S. for at least another 90 days as President Trump extends the deadline to ban or sell it for a third time. A top aide to Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is facing increased scrutiny amid ongoing arrest on the city. He's the son of a man with official ties to Beijing-backed groups. We take a closer look.
This is NTD Newsroom, live from our global headquarters in New York City.
Good afternoon, and thanks for joining us. We have a lot to go through today. Our top story: President Trump said this morning that he has signed an executive order related to TikTok. It extends the June 19th deadline by 90 days for China-based ByteDance to sell the app's U.S. assets, that is. Trump had already twice delayed enforcement of the TikTok ban. The congressionally mandated ban was set to take effect in January. Trump postponed for 75 days after taking office in April. He granted an additional 75-day delay. A possible sale of TikTok to U.S. buyers fell through after Trump faced high tariffs on Chinese goods. In today's White House briefing, Press Secretary Caroline Leavitt shared a direct message from President Trump on whether or not the United States will be directly involved in the ongoing situation in Iran. Listen.
Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks.
An Iranian missile today reportedly striking a civilian hospital in southern Israel. This while at least 3 nuclear sites come under attack across Iran. NTD's international correspondent Arian Pastor has the latest on the ongoing rocket exchange.
Scenes of destruction on Thursday after an Iranian missile struck a hospital in southern Israel. The director of the Soroka Medical Center says that 40 people are injured. Fortunately, the department that was hit was empty because the hospital was evacuated a few days ago. Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu visited the hospital, commenting on the Iranian attack.
They're targeting civilians because they're a criminal regime. They're the arch-terrorists of the world. They want to have nuclear terrorism.
Meanwhile, in northern Israel, in the city of Haifa, Israel's Iron Dome was seen intercepting Iranian missiles, which have been targeting the city. Despite the ongoing fighting, Israel's foreign minister on Thursday said that regime change in Iran is not something Israel is trying to achieve.
It's not a goal for the time being. Maybe it will be changed in the future.
Israel released this animation on Thursday, reporting that it hit 3 nuclear sites in Iran. The Jewish state says it struck the Natanz, Isfahan and Arak nuclear sites in Iran. Iranian state TV released this video, saying it shows smoke rising from the Arak nuclear site. People are fleeing Iran across various borders, trying to escape the incoming strikes. This video shows people crossing into neighboring Turkey. Others are heading to nearby Armenia instead, but all with the same goal: to escape the fighting. Arian Pastar, NTD News.
Israel says its campaign against Iran has already achieved significant success in degrading the nation's nuclear program. However, despite the elimination of top military officers and strikes on key sites, destroying its program entirely poses greater challenges. NTD's Andrew Thomas has more on Tehran's key nuclear sites spread across the country.
Today, tensions are much higher. Despite several days of Israeli airstrikes, hitting all of Iran's nuclear sites will be difficult. Here are some of the Islamic Republic's key facilities. Isfahan is Iran's second-largest city. Its nuclear center includes a fuel plate fabrication plant and a uranium conversion facility. Iran also stores enriched uranium there. Back in April, tensions between Iran and the U.S. appeared somewhat stable. When Iran's Foreign Minister Abbas Araghchi met with Omani officials in Muscat, he said negotiations over its nuclear program were constructive.
I think the Omani foreign minister shuttled between the Iranian and U.S. delegations about 4 times, and the views of both sides were conveyed to each other. It lasted about 2.5 hours, and in my opinion, as a first meeting, it was a productive one. It took place in a calm and positive atmosphere.
On April 14th, the day before the foreign ministers' meeting, Trump reiterated his long-held stance on a non-negotiable.
I think Iran could be a great country as long as it doesn't have nuclear weapons. If they have nuclear weapons, they'll never get a chance to be a great country.
That month, Sanam Vakil at British think tank Chatham House described Israel's position on Iran's nuclear program.
Israel is looking for what is known as the Libya model. It wants Iran to fully renounce its nuclear program, including the peaceful dimensions of its nuclear program. And that is something that Iran is not likely to do.
But Vakil explained why Iran holds on to its pursuit for nuclear weapons and facilities like Handab, which houses a partially built heavy water research reactor.
Part of the reason, of course, that Iran won't renounce its program is that it sees itself vulnerable to Israeli attack, very much worries that Iran's perceived adversaries will try to weaken the system further.
Experts say Iran's Fordow facility is its most hardened target. The enrichment site is dug into a mountain, more than 200 feet below ground. Fordow has around 2,000 centrifuges operating there, enriching up to 60%. According to the Center for Arms Control and Non-Proliferation, weapons-grade uranium is typically above 90%. Andrew Thomas, NTD News.
The U.S. ambassador to Turkey is in nearby Lebanon today. Iran-backed Hezbollah controls parts of southern Lebanon. U.S. diplomat Thomas Barak advises the terrorist organization against getting involved in the fighting between Israel and Iran.
What if Hezbollah intervenes in this war between Iran and Israel?
I can say on behalf of President Trump, which he has been very clear in expressing, as has Special Envoy Witkoff, that would be a very, very bad.
The ambassador made this comment just shortly after meeting Lebanon's Speaker of Parliament, who's a close ally of Hezbollah. The press room reportedly lost electricity as Barak began to respond. His response was only recorded on individual devices, not on television microphones. The U.S. diplomat later said that America stands with the people and with the government of Lebanon. According to Barak, there's hope that the chaos will end soon, and from that will come peace and prosperity in the region. A hacker group believed to be tied to Israel has claimed responsibility for a cyber attack in Iran. It wiped out nearly $90 million from Iran's largest cryptocurrency exchange. The group, known as Predatory Sparrow, says it breached Nobitex, a major digital platform allegedly used by Iran to skirt international sanctions. It's the second attack the group claims this week. Just a day earlier, they said they destroyed data at Iran's state-run bank, SEPA. Nobitex has taken its site and app offline, citing unauthorized access. The platform has not responded to media inquiries. Predatory Sparrow has a history of high-impact attacks in Iran, including past hits on fuel networks and steel facilities. Israel hasn't officially taken credit, but the group is widely seen as aligned with Israeli interests. Student visa appointments are set to resume, but with stricter rules for applicants. This comes after the Trump administration paused visa appointments last month. New State Department guidance now requires embassies to check applicants for what could be deemed as hostile attitudes towards the U.S. Applicants will be expected to set their social media profiles to public to allow screening. Failure to do so could be interpreted as an effort to hide certain online activity. Officials say they're looking for views in support of terrorism anti-Semitic content or signs, an applicant might undermine national security. The new guidance applies to both new and returning applicants. After new guidance from the DHS, lawmakers will face new restrictions when visiting ICE facilities, though some say it undermines their oversight authority. The change comes amid instances of lawmakers clashing with ICE during visits. NTD's congressional correspondent Melina Weisskopf has the report.
Under new guidance put out by the DHS this week, lawmakers now need to have prior coordination before visiting detention centers. It requires congressional staff and lawmakers to give ICE facilities 24 hours notice before visiting those detention centers. The DHS says it protects lawmakers' rights to visit detention facilities on demand, but it outright blocks access to ICE field offices for them and their staff unless the DHS first approves it. This comes as we know the situation between Democratic lawmakers and ICE has gotten heated on several occasions. In May, 3 Democratic members of Congress joined a group of protesters storming the gate of an ICE detention center in Newark, New Jersey, though they said they were exercising their lawful oversight responsibilities and accused the federal agent of escalating the situation. Then, of course, you have the recent situation with Senator Padilla, which did not happen at an ICE facility, but at Secretary Noem's press conference, where Padilla was arrested for asking a question, but ICE officers said they thought he was lunging at her and said he didn't have a visible Senate pin to identify himself. Some Democrats are saying that these new restrictions on their visits to ICE facilities and detention centers is a violation of their rights as sitting lawmakers. Yesterday, 2 congressmen from New York, Dan Goldman and Jerry Nadler, went to an ICE facility in Manhattan and were denied entry due to the new guidance. Here's their exchange with a deputy field office director.
Do any of the individuals who are processed here spend the night here?
They have.
They have spent the night. If they are processed, why are they spending the night?
We don't have an ultimate destination for them.
Congressman Dan Goldman argues that even though it was an ICE facility, it could technically be classified as a detention center if there are illegal immigrants detained there. The White House Reporters are this afternoon said the administration's main focus is getting illegal immigrants off the streets.
So we got to concentrate where we know they're being released in the street. So that's why we're sending more resources to sanctuary cities to take the public safety threats off the street.
Calling it an unlawful policy and a smokescreen to deny member visits to ICE offices across the country. We're still waiting to hear back from the Department of Homeland Security about this new guidance, but they'll likely point to these recent clashes between ICE and Democratic lawmakers as a reason why they want to enforce this new policy. Reporting from Washington, D.C., Melina Weisskopf, NTD News.
All right, joining us now to talk about the U.S. resuming student visas with stricter social media vetting is Mike Leon, NTD News contributor and host of Can We Please Talk podcast. Also joining us is Hadley Manning, Executive Vice President and Fellow, the Steamboat Institute. Good afternoon to you both. Mike, I'll start with you today. What is this new policy of requiring social media access? Tell us about the Trump administration's evolving view of student visas and national security. What do you think?
Yeah, Don, good question. Good to see everybody, first and foremost. Happy Thursday. Look, for people that don't know the way the program works, right, when you're applying for a student visa and you get enrolled into one of the universities or get accepted into one of the universities, there's already like a 5 to 6 step process in addition to what you have to do with respect to meeting somebody from the State Department and get all your paperwork in order, and then obviously go through the proper vetting, classifications or qualifications, whatever it is that they do before. This is an add-on to that, right? With respect to looking at social media history, seeing things that could be incendiary, inflammatory. Look, I have to be honest, because I live down here in Miami. I happen to know Senator Marco Rubio, and I know the background of his family, and coming from Cuba, he's talked about the dangers of doing this in a different country where him and my parents are both from with respect to Cuba. But be that as it may, this is within the State Department's purview to add this as a qualifier when people are accepted into the program by their university, and they're just adding it as another checkpoint when you go in for your student visa appointment. So again, for the folks out there that are, students in foreign countries that are looking to apply and potentially get accepted into math or engineering programs here in the US, I would highly encourage you right now to make sure you have everything already in order from your paperwork perspective, but you may have to scrub through your social media accounts, unfortunately.
Okay, Hadley, what are your thoughts here on the student visas action and social media being involved?
Immigration policy from our borders to visas has dangers on all sides. You know, we can become so restrictive that as a nation, we miss out on some of the best and brightest students who want to come to our research institutions, to our universities in the United States. On the other hand, if we have not been restrictive enough, then that could pose a risk to our national security and to our national interests. So I agree it's within the State Department's purview to do this, and I think this is consistent with what we're seeing across the board from the Trump administration, largely when it comes to immigration, with more restrictions, more caution when it comes to who enters the country. Largely all of this a correction to policies we saw under the previous administration, the Biden administration. So this doesn't come as a surprise. I think ultimately the State Department's trying to act in our best national interest and our national security interest. As an American, I am incredibly blessed that I have this freedom to speak freely, to share my opinions, to criticize my own government. However, entering the United States as someone who's not born here, who didn't have that great blessing of being born in the United States, you have a different set of responsibilities and parameters, and ultimately entry to the United States is a privilege for people who are not born here. Now, that's not fair. It's a great unfairness that some people are born in the United States and some people are born in countries, even countries that are not friendly to the United States, and that might count against them in some ways as they apply for a visa or for citizenship. But ultimately, we want the most fair practice. We'll never reach perfect fairness in immigration policy, but we want the most fair practice and the one that works in our best national interest.
Okay, let's go into some of the specifics here. And on the point of fairness, Mike, is the refusal to make social media accounts public, is that a fair basis for rejection in your opinion?
Well, I mean, look, Senator Marco Rubio, and this is one of the reasons why I'm okay with him being potentially in the State Department. He already is in the State Department, I should say. But it was because one of the things that he had talked about was social media. Everybody knows Section 230 and what social media and these platforms do from a content moderation standpoint, right? Headley's absolutely right. You should be allowed to criticize your government, and it could be unfair that somebody that's from another country criticizes their government. I mean, the government of the United States. I mean, look where I live down here in Miami, Don. 26 students on student visa from Florida International University and the University of Miami were all kicked out, some of them because of the protests and what was happening in Gaza with the war in Gaza. And so is it fair? Is it unfair? I mean, that's not the right question. The question is that this is unfortunately the consequence of an election. Elections have consequences. New people are put into place that oversee the agencies, and they've added new rules to the books. And I don't understand why we're chasing as a media, and NTD hasn't done this, so thankfully, all of these stories of folks that are like, this is not what I voted for. This is not what no, this is exactly what you voted for. This is exactly what President Trump, then candidate Trump, campaigned on. Did he campaign to the callous nature that you're mentioning, Don? No, but it said mass deportations now when it was at the RNC. They said that immigration is broken, right? They said the system was broken. This is the way that they're going about fixing it. And this is a consequence of that election and these people that are put in place. So is it callous? It's not for me to answer because it's now a State Department policy, the way they're implementing it. And it's an added check with respect to making sure that the people that are coming to this country, and I agree with Hadley, we don't want to get rid of the brightest and the best. But unfortunately, this is a consequence of it.
Okay, Hadley, do you have a response for that?
Sure. All of these questions really ultimately have one thing in common, and that is, what does the United States owe to people who are not citizens of this country? What do we owe to visitors? What do we owe to people who are here who may not have followed legal channels to be here? And those questions have been blown wide open during the second Trump administration. I think that we owe a process. We may not owe the same process, but we should strive for fairness. I agree. We'll never reach perfect fairness. It's not fair where people are born. We don't get to choose the circumstances of our birth. But in terms of how we treat people and what the process is, I think as long as there is a process and as long as we remember that the goal of the federal government is not to treat everyone around the world with the same sets of rights and privileges, the goal of our federal government in the United States is to serve the national interests of the United States and our citizens, then we can, work between those two different values and those two different parameters to try to do the best we can by citizens and non-citizens alike.
Okay, then Hadley, let me ask you this then. What is the right balance between welcoming students and protecting the U.S.?
You know, I think in the vetting process, which is what we're talking about now, that's the place where we, ideally screen people who are applying for a visa, for a student visa, for a travel visa, for any type of visa, keeping in mind that, although the southern border of the United States gets a lot of attention, there's also an enormous amount of illegal immigration that is the result of visa overstays. So we have to be cautious about when we allow people to cross the border or enter through any port of entry with a visa, with any type of permission to enter the United States. That's where we should be most cautious, and that's where we should be doing screening like this. So I believe a review of someone's social media is not totally off the table. We all have to be careful what we post on social media, depending on what's allowed by our employer, what's allowed by our free speech parameters, if we're a citizen, if we're not a citizen. So we have to be careful with that type of information, what we're sharing. I think it's fair for the State Department to do that review, but I think the best time to do it is during the vetting process. Once people are here in the United States, once we've allowed them to enter the United States and they're here with a legitimate visa, with a legitimate legal status, then I think it becomes a much more difficult question of what evidence needs to be met, what process needs to happen in order for that person to potentially be removed or have their visa revoked. Those are two different questions to my mind, and I think it's fine for the State Department to put more parameters on the vetting process because that's the place where we should be most cautious.
Okay, Mike, is the issue of student visas a national security issue?
That's a very good question, Don. I don't know if it's a national security issue, but back to what Hedley was saying, like I think there is this balance of how do you properly vet folks that are coming here, and then as they stay throughout their duration, what are they doing, right? Because I think I don't know if it's a national security issue, or I can't imagine that Tammy Bruce over at the State Department or Marco Rubio have mentioned that it is this national security issue, but I just think, as Hedley said, like there needs to be a little bit more of a vetting process that's more thorough, that's more aligned, that everybody is following. So I can't answer that accurately, Don, because I don't have clear-cut numbers that say that folks that are coming here from student visa programs that are let in by universities and go through the proper checks have then gone on their ways to either commit crimes, harm American citizens, do different things on social media that are antithetical to the United States government or things like that. Like, I don't have clear-cut examples and numbers of that, so I can't connect it, the dots for you. But unfortunately, what I can say is that the process is changing, and I think with that change, people are going to have to adapt to that change and make sure, like Hedley said, there are consequences on social media right now if I post something and my employer doesn't like it, and vice versa, right? And that's a public company, could be a private company that's upset with the way I handle something. So the process is changing. Make sure you find out that you know more about the process so you have everything in line. When you do apply, get accepted, and then you do come for that interview and you do ultimately get accepted into this country.
Okay, Hadley, same question to you. Is it or should the U.S. treat student visas as a national security issue?
I believe they should. I believe anyone who enters this country has some relevance to our national security, because what happens inside of our borders is our responsibility. It's our responsibility to try to provide the safest environment for the American public, for citizens and non-citizens alike who are here. So while there may be, some different parts of our immigration system where we see, people who have been accused of being, for example, affiliated with gangs or affiliated with terrorist organizations, the concern with student visas is more likely to be people who are extremely intelligent, highly qualified, but come from countries where there are parties or regimes that are not friendly to the United States. And the concern would be, ultimately, does that student here on a visa have loyalty to the United States that supersedes whatever their interest in their home country might be? And this comes down to things like, if you have family at home, if you have a business, a family business at home in your home country, if that country is not as democratic as the United States, doesn't have the same rule of law as the United States, are those home countries going to potentially lean on those students who are here in the United States to do things that may not be in our national interest, whether that comes to, intelligence, or whether it comes to, trying to do things that might cause a public safety issue in the United States ultimately? So I believe everyone who enters the United States is a question of national security. It may look different depending on the type of visa that we're talking about or the type of immigration that we're talking about.
Okay, I just have one more question for you guys, and then we'll call it a day. It's on a slightly different topic. There's new guidance from the DHS that lawmakers will face new restrictions when visiting ICE facilities. Some are saying that it undermines their oversight Authority. I'll get your comments each on this question. Mike, what do you think?
Well, I mean, this is something a little bit close to me because I just had Congressman Glenn Ivey on the show. I talked to Congressman Goldman after what just played on the package before we hopped on to ask him about, what it was he was trying to accomplish. I've heard kind of the same refrain from Democrats that have come on the program to talk about this. They feel that people are being detained without due process. They want to go there and see more. I make more of the argument of it's a political stunt. Like, let's call it a little bit of what it is on its surface, right? Like, maybe there's some good intentions behind it, but what is the ultimate goal of going to one of these centers when all you're doing is putting law enforcement at risk, potentially showing up there like we're seeing in what happened with the New York City comptroller, although that was at an immigration hearing, that was something completely separate. So I think, again, this is back to what we were talking about with the last topic, process, right? Putting a procedure in place. I know DHS has said now that, you have to properly do this within a 72-hour window. Representative Goldman and Nadler maintained that they did do that within a 72-hour window. So they're like, wait a minute, we're following the procedures here. We put in a request for this. We saw that it turned out peaceful with respect to what he was asking that person outside of the facility. So hopefully it stays to that level and doesn't rise to where we're getting, Senator Padilla and Rob Baracus in Newark arrested, who are public officials who are just standing there asking questions of elected officials. So I think the process needs to be cleaned up a little bit more. I think for Democrats out there that are doing this, and even for Republicans that have done it prior to, like, let's not make a political stunt out of this. If you truly feel this way about the issue, go about it from a public messaging standpoint in a different direction than doing these type of stunts that are ultimately only going to benefit you and not are benefiting your constituents.
Okay, Hadley, final thoughts.
Another theme that is similar between the student visas and the ICE facilities and the changes required there is balance. We would love to live in a world where there is perfect transparency, where any journalist or lawmaker could show up at an ICE facility and get a tour and have, complete openness. But the purpose of an ICE facility is not to do tours for lawmakers. It's not to provide all of that transparency. Of course, we want transparency, but we have to balance that with the role of these facilities, which is ultimately to process people who may not be in the country with a legal status. So they've got to go about doing their jobs, and they've got to stay focused on that. They've got to put security first, the security of Americans and non-Americans alike, people who are in the public, and that's ultimately what they have to do. Now, I think the change does reduce transparency. It means that lawmakers have to make an appointment. They have to have at least 24 hours advance notice to an ICE facility before they come visit, but they haven't been barred from visiting entirely. And so I agree with the process change. I think it's an effort to find balance and an effort to avoid, you saw the footage from the New Jersey ICE facility that you guys played several moments ago. We don't want that happening at any ICE facility for any reason. So we're trying to avoid, any kind of public confrontation like that and maintain some element of transparency.
Well, okay, great conversation today. Thank you both. Mike, Hadley.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Coming up, Texas flags 33 possible illegal votes in the 2024 election. The Attorney General vows a full investigation to protect ballot integrity. We have that story and more after the break.
Inflation is still driving up home repair costs. How are millions of homeowners saving money on unexpected bills? With Choice Home Warranty.
Is a new refrigerator in your budget? How about a replacement AC unit? I'm Ty Pennington. For many families, these costs can be catastrophic. That's why I'm a Choice Home Warranty customer. They've saved millions of homeowners from unexpected repair bills with an affordable monthly plan that provides peace of mind and helps avoid surprise expenses. Call now to protect your home with Choice Home Warranty and get your first month free.
Choice Home Warranty offers plans that cover repair or replacement on up to 25 essential home systems and appliances. Protect your budget with a customizable Choice Home Warranty.
We've been a Choice Home Warranty customer for almost 9 years.
And we couldn't be more happy with their service that we get from Choice Home Warranty.
Unexpected home repairs can quickly eat into your savings. It wastes time and fills you with stress. Choice Home Warranty is the most trusted name in home warranty. Call now to lock in a low monthly rate.
Choice Home Warranty has a nationwide network of more than 25,000 trusted technicians. When I have a breakdown, they always have the right contractor to get me taken care of quickly. I just pay a low monthly fee and they pay for the covered repairs.
Choice Home Warranty has been a great company to work with, and they've taken care of us. I would suggest
anybody who lives in a home not to be in a home without him.
It's time to protect your hard-earned money with an affordable plan from Choice Home Warranty. Call right now for the peace of mind you and your family deserve. Call Choice Home Warranty now.
Protect your home and your wallet with Choice Home Warranty. Call now to get a free quote, your first month free, and save $10 a month for the first year. Call 800-983-4585, 800-983-4585, or go to choicehome.com.
Hey, have you heard what's happening at Mathis Home? Get new lower prices all summer long with price drop alerts all over the store. They have all the latest looks at unbeatable prices. Like this big sofa with curved arms and 5 plush throw pillows. They dropped the price to just $5.99. That's an incredible value. And with their huge selection, you're sure to find the style that's just right for you. In stock with fast, free delivery. Look for price drop alert tags and save now at your furniture superstore, Mathis Home.
Where did the time go? I don't know how I got here.
You've done the hard part. You quit smoking. Now do the easy part and get scanned for lung cancer. If you smoked, you may still be at risk, but early detection could save your life. Talk to your doctor and learn more at savedbythescan.org.
Texas Attorney General Ken Paxton says his office is investigating 33 individuals who may have illegally voted in the 2024 election. The probe follows a referral from Secretary of State Jane Nelson after Texas gained access to a federal citizenship database. The change came after President Trump's executive order allowing states to use the SAVE system to confirm voter eligibility. The system verifies immigration status. Paxton says he'll use the full weight of his office to pursue any cases of voter fraud. He says only U.S. citizens should decide the outcome of American elections. It's unclear if the individuals under investigation have been confirmed as non-citizens. The announcement comes just weeks after Paxton indicated, or rather indicted, 6 people in a separate voter fraud case in South Texas. A burglary after a tragic murder. Police are investigating a break-in at the Brooklyn Park home where Minnesota lawmaker Melissa Hortman and her husband were shot and killed last week. Officers say someone pried open a rear window to get inside, even though the house had already been boarded up and released to the family. The house appeared to have been searched, but the family told police they don't believe anything was taken. Police say investigators had already removed all homicide-related evidence from the house days earlier. Neighbors spoke to local news, describing the burglary as a desecration of the couple's memory. Mourners held a candlelight vigil last night in remembrance of former Minnesota House Speaker Melissa Hortman and her husband, Mark Hortman. Participants gathered on the steps of the state capitol in St. Paul. A man posing as a police officer fatally shot the Hortmans in their home Saturday in the Minneapolis suburb of Brooklyn Center. Hortman had served as the top House Democratic leader since 2017 and 6 years as Speaker. Minnesota Governor Tim Walz attended the vigil. Mourners sang Amazing Grace, held candles, and left flowers at an improvised memorial. Vance Bolter had been charged for their murders in federal court and state court. Bolter is also accused of shooting another Democratic lawmaker, Senator John Hoffman, and his wife, Yvette, at their home a few miles away. They survived and are recovering. The federal judge is allowing prosecutors to charge Mohammed Sabri Solomon with a hate crime. He's accused of hurling Molotov cocktails at demonstrators in Boulder, Colorado. The demonstrators had gathered to advocate for the release of Israeli hostages. Solomon appeared in federal court in Denver yesterday for a preliminary hearing. Investigators say he planned the attack for a year and was driven by a desire, quote, to kill all Zionist people. Solomon's defense attorney urged Magistrate Judge Catherine Starnella not to allow the case to move forward, arguing that his client targeted the demonstrators because of their perceived political views, not their religion. Authorities say Solomon told them he had intended to kill the roughly 20 participants at Boulder's Pearl Street pedestrian mall. Solomon told investigators he tried to buy a gun, but was not able to because he is not a citizen. Federal authorities say the Egyptian national has been living in the U.S. illegally. A record-breaking crypto seizure by federal authorities has exposed a massive international fraud network. It left hundreds of victims financially devastated. Here's the story.
This is about quick money. It's about old crimes being committed in new ways.
Federal prosecutors say they have seized more than $225 million in cryptocurrency linked to an international online investment scam. Special Agent in Charge Sean Bradstreet says it's the largest cryptocurrency seizure in U.S. Secret Service history. Interim U.S. Attorney for the District of Columbia, Jeanine Pirro, said Wednesday the idea is an old one, but the schemes are brand new.
First, they identify their victims, they gain people's trust, and then they take advantage.
Scammers then steal the funds under the guise of legitimate investment opportunities. The Justice Department filed a civil forfeiture complaint Wednesday. It said the Secret Service and the FBI used blockchain analysis to trace illicit funds laundered through over 140 crypto exchange accounts and more than 260,000 transactions. Authorities say the funds were funneled through scam compounds in Southeast Asia, often using trafficked labor.
These are sophisticated bad actors who send stolen money through a variety of complex transactions and intermediary addresses between the initial victim deposit and along the blockchain to launder and obfuscate the source of the funds.
More than 430 victims were caught up in so-called pig butchering scams, online schemes where criminals pose as trusted contacts or investors to trick users into handing over their crypto. The DOJ says one victim, a Kansas bank CEO, was convinced to embezzle $47 million from the bank to invest in a fake crypto platform. Another in Texas lost $7 million before realizing the site was a sham. The DOJ says criminals use sophisticated techniques to hide the money trail, splitting funds across wallets and blockchains to avoid detection. Pirro said that what makes today's schemes different is the unmatched speed and scope enabled by digital platforms and new technologies.
The hopeful investor now enters the Wild West on an international scale where the crime is global, where there are no borders, and where the crypto criminals avoid the rules because this is an unregulated Wild West.
Investigators say they are working to return the funds to the victims.
We're going to go after these people. Thank you.
The White House briefs the public on the latest moves by the Trump administration to respond to the Israel-Iran conflict. That's just after Trump received an intelligence briefing this morning. NTD's Washington correspondent Jack Bradley is at the White House. Jack, what's the latest?
Hey there, Don. Well, President Trump is giving the Iranian regime 2 weeks to come to the table, make a deal. Otherwise, U.S. military may get involved in the conflict. Caroline Leavitt, the press secretary, made the announcement, reading out the president's statement here just a few minutes ago. Let's take a look.
Regarding the ongoing situation in Iran, I know there has been a lot of speculation amongst all of you in the media regarding the president's decision-making and whether or not the United States will be directly involved. In light of that news, I have a message directly from the president, and I quote, "Based on the fact that there's a substantial chance of negotiations that may or may not take place with Iran in the near future, I will make my decision whether or not to go within the next 2 weeks."
Well, there you heard right there was that the president does have hope that the Iranian regime will come to the table. Just yesterday, he said that Iran has reached out to him and that but President Trump said that it's very late for negotiations, but still giving Iran time to come to the table, that 2 weeks there. We also heard Caroline Leavitt reiterate that Trump gave Iran 60 days to make a deal earlier, and that the 61st day was when Israel struck Iran and the play out from that. Leavitt also made some other announcements there today. She said that in May of 2025, 0 illegal immigrants were released into the interior of the U.S. once detained. Now, she said that the next step is focusing on getting the illegal immigrants out of the country that are here, specifically targeting the so-called sanctuary cities, which critics say require its local law enforcement to not help the ICE officers and immigration federal enforcement. Now, starting with these so-called sanctuary cities, she said that that when the illegal immigrants come in, it results in a loss of wages due to stealing American jobs and all at the taxpayers' expense. She also called for the One Big Beautiful Bill to pass, saying that it will raise the take-home pay, increase wages, expands and makes child tax credit permanent, as well as there's no tax on tips or overtime. She also wants to take, she says that the bill will take illegal immigrants off of Medicaid. And they are calling for a deadline to pass that bill and reach the president's desk by July 4th. Back to you, Don.
And Trump just extended the TikTok deadline as well. What did the press secretary say about that, Jack?
Right, so the extension is 3 months, about 90 days. The president says that based upon his executive order to extend it, that we can have national security of Americans safe who use TikTok, the millions of people who use TikTok it. And also, earlier we heard that the U.S. government may get involved in the purchase or acquisition of this. But first it needs to make an agreement. TikTok is owned by ByteDance, which is a Chinese-owned company. It's close ties to the Chinese Communist Party, as all companies in China are required to do by a 2017 national security law, which requires all companies in China to share its user data with the CCP upon request. So we can see how things play out there. TikTok was, of course, banned under the Biden administration, and one of President Biden's last acts in office, banning that app due to national security concerns about the Chinese Communist Party accessing the user data of Americans here in the U.S., including all of their keystrokes, and also censoring certain information on the app, including if you search up something related to the Tiananmen Square Tiananmen Square massacre back in June 4th, 1989. It doesn't come up, and so that's very similar along the lines of all other Chinese-related apps. Don, back to you.
Okay, Jack, as always, thank you very much. Coming up, how realistic is the scenario of Israel's airstrikes leading to the fall of the Iranian regime, and what group is likely to fill the power vacuum? We discuss with an analyst after the break.
Focus on beauty, showcase nature, share kindness, feel brightness. 2025, the 5th NTD International Photography Competition. Capture the beautiful moments in your eyes. Your works will be showcased in galleries and on multiple online platforms, appreciated and collected. Please visit photo.ntdtv.com.
Shenyun Creations, the streaming platform from Shenyun, featuring world-class dance, past programs, and all original music. Masterclasses, behind the scenes, comedy, and more. Explore shenyuncreations.com.
As we naturally age, many people are getting zero amount of this incredible and unique substance. That's when we start seeing an impact in our joints, skin, nails, and even our digestion.
People ask me, Dr. X, what is the #1 supplement I should be taking? My answer is multi-collagen protein.
People's reactions to me, people were like, what are you doing? What is going on? You look amazing. You have a glow about you.
What makes Ancient Nutrition Multi-Collagen stand out from other brands? 10 types of collagen. It's grass-fed, pasture-raised with vitamin C and probiotics. It's proven to reduce joint discomfort rapidly, continuously, and persistently. It improves the appearance of crow's feet after 4 weeks and improves skin tone after 8 weeks. And it promotes hair thickness, growth, and a reduction in hair breakage.
it has transformed everything from my hair. Like, my hair was starting to kind of just, you know, come out, and I don't have that anymore. My skin feels amazing.
Call the number on your screen and find out how to get a free bottle when you order, plus free shipping and our 30-day money-back guarantee. And as a bonus, we will include Dr. Josh Axe and Jordan Rubin's revolutionary book, Multi-Collagen Makeover, free with your order, plus free shipping and free returns.
I have implicit trust in Dr. Axe because the plan worked. I'm living proof of it.
This is the collagen protein that is backed by clinical studies. It's what my family uses, it's what I use, and I know you're going to benefit in a big way as well.
Love the results or get your money back. This special TV offer is not available in stores. Call the number on your screen or go online now.
Joining us now to talk about the potential for the collapse of the Iranian regime is Hosro Esfani, Research Fellow at the National Union for Democracy in Iran. So good afternoon to you. Can you talk to us about how realistic is this scenario of Israel's airstrikes directly leading to the fall of the Iranian regime?
Thank you very much for having me. So first thing that you should have in mind is that the Islamic Republic's military power, the top echelon of this regime, has been removed already. Almost all senior IRGC commanders are dead. The supreme leader is hiding in a hole in the ground while he's grandstanding about resisting against Israel. This is the situation that the Islamic Republic is in right now. Already, the regime had lost the majority of its proxies over the past year and so. Now its defenses, air defenses, missile defenses, nuclear facilities to large degree have been decimated. So the regime is at its weakest point ever in history.
So if it does fall, what form would it take? You touched on it a little bit. Can you go into more specifics? For example, would it be because of an uprising, perhaps internal coup? What form would it take?
So there is a faction within the Islamic Republic with almost zero political or military power that has been trying to picture itself that it can pull a coup. If that faction had any power, they would have been able to put a candidate on ballot box during the last presidential election. But they are just charlatans trying to picture themselves larger than what they are. The actual change in Iran will be made by the hands of the Iranian people, the same people who have been on the streets of Iran since the day the Islamic Republic came to power in 1979. Since the first year after the revolution, the Iranian people have been protesting non-stop. The cycles of these protests, initially there were gaps, 10-year gaps between them, but over the past decade, these gaps have tightened. And we are seeing that almost every year, a major cycle of protests in Iran. And that's the actual force for change, that the Iranian people are allies of the world for bringing change to Iran and putting an end to the tyranny of the Islamic Republic that has taken the whole world hostage, not just the Iranian people, but the whole world hostage. And that can become a more likely reality. A secular democratic Iran can become a more likely reality if the forces of oppression that the Islamic Republic has used for killing thousands of Iranians on the streets are also targeted and decimated.
Okay, so you're saying the people is very important in this situation, but I'm also thinking that amid the strikes by Israel, right, some people are just trying to stay safe. You know, what do you say about that?
You're absolutely correct. Thousands of people have already left the capital, Tehran. But at the same time, what we are observing with this population is that those who have remained in Tehran are using their scant and scarce financial resources to even feed stray cats and dogs on the streets of Tehran. We are dealing with a nation that is proud, that is generous, that is determined to save its homeland.
Okay, so is there a risk in your mind that even after a potential collapse, the new Iranian leaders could, sort of follow the same ways of the previous regime?
So the thing is, if the Islamic Republic is removed, if the collapse actually takes away the question of the Islamic Republic, no, that risk doesn't exist. But that risk is still something that is keeping many people, including me, up at night, because we know there are forces in the West that are still trying to make a deal with the Islamic Republic. That would throw this genocidal, brutal regime a lifeline, giving them a chance to save themselves, and they are literally threatening people that if that happens, we are going to do the same thing that we did in 1980s. What they did then was executing thousands of political prisoners during a single summer, dumping their bodies in mass graves, and no one came to Iranian people's assistance. This is a historic moment. The world should heed the Iranian people's call for the first time after 4 decades and assist them to overthrow this regime.
Okay, can you help us weigh the possibilities here? Is it possible that this is not a turning point, but it's simply just another chapter in the history of this regime and that it'll just simply pass?
To be honest, I cannot see a very likely scenario that the world would be duped again into signing another JCPOA 2.0, throwing this brutal regime another lifeline. Yes, there is talk about diplomatic engagement with the Islamic Republic, but I don't feel confident that these lines, these comments would actually lead to a diplomatic detente with this regime. So this is a historic moment. This is the moment that the history of the Middle East can be changed. This is the moment that the leading state sponsor of terrorism can be taken out and the Iranian people can be given a chance at having a life in liberty.
Yes, it definitely feels like a historic moment. What would be the surrounding regional impact of this regime collapse?
So the Islamic Republic has been consistently and constantly exporting terrorism across the region. Just look at Iran's neighbors these days. You have Islamic Republic exporting terrorism to Kashmir, to Iraq, to Yemen, to Syria, to Lebanon. Everywhere that you look, you can see the footprints of this tyrannical regime propping up terrorist organizations that are threatening shipping and trade, that are killing civilians, that are propping up dictators. They were helping Bashar al-Assad remain in power for years after butchering that proud nation in Syria. Fortunately, Assad is out of the picture, but all these can fall apart again if the Islamic Republic is given a chance to survive. If the Islamic Republic falls, the region will find a democratic, secular ally in Iran that would assist the whole region to move forward from this blood-soaked history that we have seen over the past 5 decades. The Iranian people have always safeguarded peace and stability in the region. We are here for allies to build the region again. A brighter, a better future for millions of people that live in our neighborhood.
Okay, we're running short on time. I'll ask you one more question here. What role should the U.S. play in this situation?
I'm in no position to advise the United States on how to conduct its foreign policy or military conduct. But I have one thing to say to U.S. policymakers. President after president, the United States has ignored the Iranian people as their key ally in the Middle East. You cannot find a single large population in the Middle East that is so aligned with the US values, with US principles. Heed the Iranian people, assist them to take their country back from this tyrannical rule that has wreaked havoc across the Middle East, killed hundreds of US servicemen, put lives of US citizens at risk. Assist the Iranian people to reclaim their homeland.
Okay, Horst Rowe, thank you very much.
Thank you.
Los Angeles Mayor Karen Bass is in the spotlight for her recent clash with President Trump over how to handle unrest in the city. Now, another issue is coming to light. New reports suggest potential ties between her close aides and a Beijing-backed intelligence group. Here's the latest.
Facing scrutiny is Adam Ma, Mayor Bass's Asian American liaison and commission appointments director. His father, Derek Ma, also known as Ma Shurong, holds top roles in U.S.-based nonprofits controlled by Beijing. These groups are linked to China's United Front Work Department, Beijing's propaganda and intelligence arm, working to influence Chinese communities in the U.S. Chinese state media also show Derek Ma has close ties to key regime leaders. 5 years ago, he was caught attending an event featuring the regime's leader, Xi Jinping. At the Chinese Communist Party's 100th anniversary in 2021, Derek Ma publicly declared his loyalty, stating, quote, if China didn't have the CCP, there'd be no strong China today. Meanwhile, he was busy fundraising for then Congresswoman Karen Bass's mayoral campaign. Reports say Derek raised tens of thousands of dollars through his influence in local Chinese communities. Shortly after taking office, Mayor Bass hired Derek's son, Adam Ma, for key positions on her team. This news comes as lawmakers investigate potential Chinese influence behind the LA protests, including ties to pro-CCP billionaire Neville Singham.
A SpaceX rocket exploded in Brownsville, Texas last night. Video footage captured the explosion and an enormous fireball. SpaceX said the Starship experienced a major anomaly around 11 a.m. while on the test launch pad. The company said there were no hazards to nearby communities, but asked people not to approach the site. Last night marked the 10th test flight for SpaceX's Starship. CEO Elon Musk's spacecraft is designed to carry both crew and cargo to Earth orbit, the Moon and Mars as well. The rocket consists of two components: 33 Raptor engines using subcooled liquid methane and liquid oxygen power. The Super Heavy booster, the 171-foot-tall second-stage spacecraft, is known as Starship. Both are designed to be fully reusable. The Los Angeles City Council has approved funding to cover LAPD overtime costs related to recent protests. Meanwhile, demonstrations continued outside a Southern California hotel where ICE agents were believed to be staying. We have that story and more when we come back.
Imagine a coffee that cares for your health. Expertly fermented with a 50 enzyme complex to enhance flavor and remove bitterness. Small batch roasted to a decadent medium dark, resulting in a brew that is gentle on digestion, low acid, and up to 90% less caffeine than regular coffee. Try America's first enzyme fermented coffee today.
With almost 4 decades in the spotlight, Cindy Crawford has never lost her stunning glow. With her gorgeous, age-defying skin, US Weekly says, whatever she's doing, it's clearly working. How does her skin still look firm, smooth, and youthful at 59? It's meaningful beauty. And now, with new advanced formulas, it's better than ever, delivering our age-defying ingredients even deeper into the skin to fight wrinkles where they begin. Just wait until you see the difference meaningful beauty can make for you.
Instant hydration, instant plumping. My skin looks amazing. What I'm most proud of is over 5 million women have trusted Meaningful Beauty, and they're getting great results, and I get that feedback from them in airports, supermarkets, walking down the street, and I love it.
And today, we are celebrating 20 years of meaningful beauty with a brand new offer you don't want to miss. You can get the entire advanced Meaningful Beauty system with all 5 age-defying super treatments. And when you order today, you'll receive our Targeted Treatment Duo, a $128 value free. Introducing the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules to target crow's feet, forehead lines, and lines around your mouth. Plus, you'll also get the new Skin Renewing Facial Tool with heat, massage, and red light to boost the absorption of the wrinkle smoothing capsules and reduce the appearance of puffiness. The Skin Renewing Facial Tool and the Wrinkle Smoothing Capsules together create Meaningful Beauty's amazing targeted treatment duo.
This plus this equals incredible results.